The first night I heard him, I assumed somebody upstairs had insomnia. That was it. Just another guy pacing around his apartment at a weird hour. When you live in a cheap building long enough, you stop questioning strange noises. Pipes scream through the walls. People argue at midnight. Dogs bark for hours. Somebody's smoke alarm always needs batteries. You learn to ignore things, but after the third night, I realized the footsteps above me were happening at exactly the same time. 3:00 a.m., not 2:58, not 3:02, exactly 3:00 every single night. I know because I started checking. At first I thought it was coincidence. Then it became a pattern. 3 slow footsteps across the ceiling. Pause, another 3, then silence. And exactly 47 minutes later, the footsteps returned. Every night, always 47 minutes, never more, never less. The routine became so consistent that eventually I started waking up before it happened. I'd lie there in the dark staring at the ceiling waiting for it. 3:00 a.m. Step, 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 pause, then movement across the apartment overhead. After about 2 weeks of this, curiosity started eating at me. Because there was something wrong with the rhythm of the footsteps. They sounded too heavy, not loud, heavy, like someone walking very slowly while carrying something. One Friday night, I finally decided to look. My apartment window faced the parking lot behind the building. From there, I could see the side entrance tenants used after dark. At exactly 2:59 a.m., I turned off every light in my apartment and stood beside the blinds waiting. The parking lot outside was empty except for rainwater reflecting the security lamps. Everything was silent. Then above me, step. Step, step, I held my breath. A few seconds later, the side entrance door opened, and a man stepped outside, tall, thin, wearing a dark coat that hung almost to his ankles. His hood covered most of his face, but I could tell immediately something about him looked off. Not monstrous, not dramatic, just wrong in a subtle way my brain couldn't fully explain. He carried a large black trash bag in one hand, and before you ask, yes, I immediately assumed the worst. Every horror movie instinct in my body kicked in right there. But the strange thing wasn't the bag. It was the way he moved, slow, stiff, like somebody pretending to walk normally after watching humans do it their entire life. The man crossed the parking lot without looking around once, then disappeared into the alley beside the building. I checked the time, 3:02 a.m. 47 minutes later he returned. Same slow walk, same black bag, except now the bag looked empty. That should have been the end of it. People take trash out late at night. Weird neighbors exist. But something about him bothered me enough that I couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. The next morning, I asked the old woman downstairs if she knew the tenant living above me. Mrs. Delaney looked uncomfortable immediately. "You mean the man in 407? I nodded. She stirred sugar into her coffee slowly without looking at me. "He keeps to himself." That answer told me absolutely nothing. "What's his name?" "I don't know. You've never talked to him." She hesitated too long before answering. "Once." Something about her expression made me sit forward slightly. "What happened?" Mrs. Delaney looked toward the apartment hallway before lowering her voice. "He asked me what time I usually go to sleep." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What?" "He said he was trying not to make noise at night." She swallowed. "But while he was talking to me, he never blinked." I forced a small laugh. "That's creepy, but maybe he's just awkward." Mrs. Delaney didn't laugh back. Then she said something I still think about constantly. "I've lived here 11 years. I know every sound this building makes." She leaned closer. "But his apartment doesn't sound right." That night I couldn't sleep at all. Around 2:40 a.m. I made coffee and sat by the window again. Rain hammered softly against the glass outside. The building felt unusually quiet. No televisions, no arguments, nothing. Then exactly at 3:00 a.m. the footsteps started again. Step, step, step. I watched the side entrance carefully, waiting. But this time nobody came out. I frowned. The footsteps continued overhead, moving slowly across apartment 407. Then suddenly they stopped directly above my ceiling. Complete silence followed, and for some reason I had the horrible feeling somebody upstairs knew I was watching. Then my phone buzzed loudly in my hand, nearly making me jump out of my skin. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello, silence, then slow breathing. My chest tightened instantly. Who is this? A man whispered softly. You're awake earlier tonight. The line disconnected immediately. I stared at the phone, frozen. Then slowly, very slowly, I looked up toward my ceiling and heard movement directly above me, not footsteps, scratching, like fingernails dragging slowly across the floor right over my bed. I didn't sleep at all after that. Around 7 a.m. I finally worked up the nerve to go upstairs. Apartment 407 sat at the very end of the hallway. No decorations, no welcome mat, nothing. Just a dark brown door with chipped paint near the bottom. I knocked once, no answer. I knocked again, still nothing. Then I noticed something strange, the door frame. There were scratch marks all around it, deep ones, like something heavy had been dragged inside repeatedly. I stepped closer, and that's when I smelled it. A faint odor leaking from beneath the door, rotting meat. My stomach turned instantly. I backed away fast. At that exact moment, something moved behind the peephole. A shadow standing directly behind the door, watching me, completely motionless. Then slowly, the doorknob began turning. The doorknob turned slowly, not aggressively, not suddenly, slow enough to make my stomach tighten with dread. I backed away from the door instinctively while the lock clicked open from the inside. Then the door stopped, only a few inches open. Darkness filled the gap. I couldn't see inside the apartment at all, but I could smell it stronger now. Rotting meat, wet carpet, something old. Something sealed away too long. Then a voice spoke softly from inside. You've been watching me. I froze. The voice was calm, almost polite. I forced myself to answer. You called my phone last night. Silence followed. Then, you shouldn't stay awake after 3 a.m. Every hair on my arm stood up instantly. I tried peeking past the crack in the door, but the apartment beyond looked unnaturally dark. No lights, no windows visible, nothing, just blackness. Then slowly, a pale hand appeared around the edge of the door, long fingers, too long. The skin looked stretched tightly over the bones, and something about the joints looked wrong, bent strangely, like the hand had learned how to imitate human anatomy without fully understanding it. The man spoke again. You should sleep earlier. The door began closing. Panic suddenly pushed words out of my mouth before I could stop myself. What's in the bag? The movement stopped instantly. Silence filled the hallway. Then the voice answered quietly, things that shouldn't stay inside. The door shut completely, and the deadbolt locked. I stood there frozen for several seconds. Then I heard movement inside apartment 407. Fast movement, not walking, crawling across the ceiling. I immediately backed away from the door and hurried downstairs. By the time I reached my apartment, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I locked every lock on the door without even thinking about it. That should have been enough for me. Normal people would have minded their business after that. But fear does something strange to curiosity. It feeds it. The more unsettled I became, the more obsessed I got with apartment 407. Over the next few days, I started noticing other things. Nobody ever visited him. No deliveries, no groceries, no sounds during daytime hours. And despite living directly beneath him, I never once heard running water. No shower, no sink, nothing. It was like the apartment only existed after dark. 3 nights later, I finally checked the building's security cameras. I know that sounds insane, but the landlord kept the monitor room unlocked near the laundry area because nobody ever used it. At around 2:50 a.m., I went downstairs with a flashlight and pulled up the live hallway feeds. Apartment 407 sat at the top right corner of camera 6. The hallway looked empty, silent, still. Then exactly at 3:00 a.m. the hallway lights flickered once, and the camera glitched, only for a second. Static flashed across the screen. When the image returned, apartment 407's door was slightly open. My chest tightened instantly because I never saw it open. Nobody walked out, nobody appeared. The door was simply closed 1 second, then open the next. I leaned closer to the monitor. The hallway beyond remained empty. Then slowly the door closed again by itself. At 3:47 a.m. The exact same thing happened in reverse. Static, door suddenly open, static again, door closed, no person visible entering or leaving. I replayed the footage 3 times, nothing, no sign of movement at all, and that's when I noticed something worse. The timestamp in the corner, between 3:00 and 3:47. The camera skipped frames constantly, tiny missing moments, almost impossible to notice unless you stared carefully, like something interfered with the recording itself. I suddenly remembered the smell from outside apartment 407, and a horrible thought entered my mind. Maybe he wasn't taking trash out. Maybe he was bringing something back in. That night I couldn't stop thinking about the black bag. At around 2:30 a.m. I parked my car across the street from the apartment building where I could see the alley clearly. Rain drizzled softly over the windshield. Everything looked dead outside. No cars, no people, no movement. Then exactly at 3:02 a.m. I saw him. The man in the dark coat emerged from the alley carrying the black bag again. But this time the bag was moving, not dramatically, just small jerking movements inside the plastic. My blood went cold instantly. The man stopped walking, slowly turned his head, and looked directly toward my car. Even from across the street, I could feel him staring at me. Then he smiled. I couldn't fully see his face beneath the hood, but I saw enough. His mouth stretched too wide. Far too wide for a human face. Then suddenly the bag moved violently, like something inside was trying to escape. The man gripped it tighter immediately, and for 1 horrible second I heard muffled screaming, human screaming. I nearly opened the car door right there, nearly ran. Nearly called the police, but before I could move, the screaming stopped instantly. The bag became still again. The man tilted his head slowly toward me, then whispered something. Even through the rain, even through the windshield, I somehow heard it clearly. "Don't look up tonight." Then he walked calmly back inside the apartment building. I didn't go home immediately after that. I drove around the city for almost an hour trying to calm down enough to think straight. By the time I finally returned, it was nearly 5 a.m. The parking lot sat empty, silent. I hurried inside the building, avoiding eye contact with every dark hallway window on the way. Then I reached the stairwell and stopped instantly because something wet dripped slowly down the stairs from above. Dark liquid, thick, fresh. My heart started pounding again. I followed the trail upward carefully toward the 4th floor. Drip, drip, drip. The trail led directly to apartment 407, and the door was slightly open, only a crack, darkness leaking through it. Then from somewhere inside the apartment, I heard someone crying softly, a woman, weak, terrified, "Please." I froze, the crying continued. "Oh God, please help me." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but another part of me knew someone might actually be inside there. Hurt, dying, I stepped toward the doorway slowly. The smell hit me immediately again, stronger now. So strong it burned my throat. Then the crying stopped, complete silence. And from inside the darkness, a voice whispered softly, "That wasn't for you." The voice inside apartment 407 didn't sound human anymore, not completely. It still had words, still had emotion, but underneath it, there was something else, something layered beneath the sound, like another voice trying to speak at the same time. I backed away from the cracked doorway immediately, every instinct screaming at me to get out of the building. Then the woman started crying again, louder this time, desperate. "Please, please don't leave me." My chest tightened hard because it sounded real, too real, and that's exactly what made it terrifying. I stood frozen in the hallway trying to decide whether I was hearing an actual victim or bait. Then suddenly the apartment lights flickered on. For 1 single second, and I saw inside apartment 407. I still wish I hadn't. The walls were covered in black stains stretching from floor to ceiling. Not paint, not mold, handprints, hundreds of them, some large, some small. as if people had desperately clawed at the walls trying to escape. But that wasn't the worst part. The ceiling moved. At first, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Then realization hit me all at once. Something was attached upside down above the doorway, something human-shaped. Crawling slowly across the ceiling like a spider. The lights shut off again instantly. Darkness swallowed the apartment, and the crying stopped. Complete silence. Then the thing on the ceiling whispered directly above me. You looked up. I ran. I don't even remember making the decision. 1 second I stood outside apartment 407. The next I was sprinting down the hallway so fast I nearly fell over the railing. Behind me, I heard movement explode from inside the apartment, not footsteps. Crawling, fast crawling, walls shaking, ceiling cracking, something chasing me on all fours. I hit the stairwell door hard and nearly collapsed down the stairs trying to escape. Then suddenly silence. The entire building became quiet again, too quiet. I stopped halfway down the stairs, breathing hard, listening, nothing, no movement, no pursuit. Then slowly a voice echoed from the top floor hallway. Calm, patient, you should have stayed asleep. I looked upward instinctively and immediately regretted it, because the thing was hanging upside down from the stairwell ceiling directly above me. Its limbs bent unnaturally backward. Its dark coat hung toward the floor like wet skin, and its face, dear God. Its face looked unfinished, like it kept changing every second trying to decide what a human should look like. Too many teeth, eyes too large, skin stretching and twitching like something underneath was moving around, and despite hanging upside down it smiled perfectly. You've been watching me, it whispered. The thing dropped from the ceiling. I ran again instantly. This time I didn't stop until I reached the parking lot outside. Rain slammed against the pavement. I sprinted toward my car, fumbling for my keys while looking back toward the apartment building. 4th floor, apartment 407, one window, dark. Empty, then lightning flashed overhead, and for one split second, I saw the thing pressed against the outside of the building, crawling downward toward me. My entire body locked up in terror because it wasn't climbing. It was moving like gravity didn't affect it, fast, smooth, like a spider. Another flash of lightning illuminated the building. Now it was closer. Its head twisted sideways unnaturally while staring directly at me, smiling. I got inside my car so fast I nearly broke the key in the ignition. The engine started. I slammed the gas immediately, tires screeching across wet pavement. But as I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror one final time and saw every apartment window in the building suddenly light up at once. People standing behind the glass, watching me leave, perfectly still, every single resident, even people I'd never seen before. Then all the lights shut off together. I drove straight to a motel outside the city and stayed there until morning. The next day I called the police. I told them everything. The screaming, the black bag, the smell, apartment 407. The officers looked skeptical immediately, but they still agreed to check the building. 3 patrol cars arrived around noon. I watched from across the street. Officers entered the building, minutes passed, then 20 minutes, then 30. Finally, 2 officers walked back outside. One looked pale. The other refused to look toward the 4th floor windows. I hurried across the street immediately. What happened? The older officer hesitated, then finally said, "There's nobody living in apartment 407. I frowned. That's impossible. The apartment's empty. No, I saw him. The officer interrupted quietly. Sir, apartment 407 has been vacant for almost 3 years. I felt cold instantly. No, the officer nodded slowly, then said something that made my stomach drop. The previous tenant died there. Rain drizzled softly around us, cars passing somewhere distant. Everything suddenly felt unreal. How? The officer looked uncomfortable. He jumped. Silence. Neighbors reported strange behavior before the incident, complaints about noises at night, scratching sounds. People said he stopped sleeping. The officer swallowed. Then one morning they found him in the parking lot. I stared at the building, 4th floor. Dark windows watching. The officer lowered his voice slightly. When we opened the apartment today, there was nothing inside. He paused. No furniture, no stains, nothing. My mouth felt dry, but the officer continued carefully. There were scratch marks on the ceiling. A pulse of fear moved through my chest. Then he said the sentence I still hear in my nightmares, like something had been crawling up there. I moved out 2 days later, didn't even finish packing properly, left furniture behind, clothes, everything. I just wanted out. And for a while, I convinced myself maybe stress had broken me. Sleep deprivation, paranoia, hallucinations, until 3 weeks later. I was lying awake in my new apartment around 2:58 a.m. when I heard something above me. 3 slow footsteps, step, step, step. My blood turned to ice instantly. Then came silence, and from directly above my ceiling, I heard fingernails dragging slowly across the floor, right over my bed. I never looked up again after that, because deep down I already know what's up there. And sometimes late at night, right before 3 a.m., I still hear him leaving. If you are new here, subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare.